Yeah. Okay. Just a short note about last week. I was discussing the two psukim in the mitzvah say of Basula l'kohen Gdol. Who isha b'sela yikoch and ki'im b'sula me'amav yikachisha. And we discussed the Ramban learns each pasuk for a different thing. The truth is, the Rambam, and we were talking about how the Rambam learns it. The Rambam never quotes the second pasuk ki'im, and we don't know. He doesn't say it's kefil over here, so we have no clue how the Rambam interprets the pasuk. And the Gemara learns out really in Horiyos that Mitzuva al Absula from Vuhu B'Sela Yikachisha. So I'm not sure how bad the Rambam is, but this dichotomy between the two psukim that the Ramban has based on Teres Kohanim, I'm not sure that it's expressed in the Rambam at all. What I like to do is move on to the next mitzvah and try. Let's cover some ground. Okay. HaMitzvos aboyim ish zivonu. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Oh, one second. Yeah. Lamed Tes should be because Lamed Ches was Psula l'kohen Gdol. Lamed Tes the mitzvah Tamidim. HaMitzvah Teisha u'shloishim ichi zivoru להקריב b'mikdosh shnei kvosim b'chol yom. V'elu nikroim Tamidim. V'hu Omo yis'ale shnayim liom Ole Samid ukva izboye seder hakovoson u'ma'aseyim b'sheni miyumo u'meseches Tamid. So now we're going to deal. Is going to list of mitzvahs which the korbanos which they come at peculiar times at certain times. And this one now we're going to start with the one that's daily. Ve'el nikoyim tmidim. What the Ram wants with Mikdash, we have no clue. Okay, why? All Kabbalahs require Mikdash, and there's no special requirement by Mikdash in the Tmidim. Shmei Kvosim b'chol yom. It's a keves. It's a keves echot tasabek. It's keves sheni tasabein aboyim. Ve'el nikoyim Tmidim. And Tamidah means that the Matike Ashmur, the called this mitzvah Tamidim. And I guess what it means is that when you find this lashon of Tamidim, the kavona is to this mitzvah. The Rambam, in many places, has a kinui that the Matiki Ashmur called the mitzvah. For example, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, where he says the mitzvah is Lomot Chochmas HaTorah U'Lalamdo. He says it's the mitzvah is called Shenikris Talmud Torah, mitzvah Yud Aleph. Lohosi adeshen b'chol yoy mi'al gabe mizbeach via nikras tchumas adeshen mitzvah lamed. Chetzivonu sheyakriv kohen Gdol b'chol yom Tamid mincha b'boker mincha ben arbayim via nikras chavite kohen Gdol. V'tikra gam kein minchas kohen Gdol. Mitzvah mem, which is the next mitzvah, Mitzvah. You find this also in Mem Aleph, Mem Dalid, Nun Gimel, Ayin Aleph, Ayin Beis, Kuf Chaf Gimel, Kuf Chaf Zayin, Kuf Chaf Tes, Kuf Nun Gimel, Kuf Tzadi, and Lois Seresh Nun Tes. But the bottom line is, any place where you find this phrase, the Matik Yashmu have in mind to Mechana that this is the mitzvah. Talmud Torah is the mitzvah, Talmud Torah. We have no idea what Chazal want to do. It's a cold word. It tells you something about the mitzvah. I can't say we know that much one way or the other. Next. Now, the Hu Amrei Yis'aleh Shnayim Layoim Oile Somid. Shnayim Layoim Oile Somid. So the Ramban so basically there's one mitzvah to be makriv kvasim, 2 kvasim a day, one in the morning and one in the evening. So comes the Ramban at the end of Shiur Aleph, and he says that Tomat Shachar and Tomat Shabai Bein Abayim is 2 mitzvahs in the minyan, because they're not makriv zu. And this you'll find at the end of Shiur Aleph, v'loik yachshavu shnei ma'asim she'eino ma'akvin zo ez zeh elu zeh ez zeh elu shtei mitzvos afal pi shehu moine kriyash mashachris v'arves mitzvah achas v'aktos aboike ve'erev achas. The Rambam is moinen is 1 mitzvah u'shnei tmidim achas, but it's a mistake. He disagrees with all of them, and instead of being 1 mitzvah, it's 2 mitzvahs. And the Ramban also, it's not only hasoga. In hasoga, sometimes is only for limud, and but halacha l'maisa, he adds to the minyan mitzvahs. He says at the end of the Aseh Alav and Shesilek in the Asogas Ramban, Viato im Tovin Koma Shekosavnu Bedini Mitzvahs Aseh Tire Shesolaknu Mecheshbonenu Shelorav V'Yovou B'Mekoymoi U'Shnei Tmidim U'Kteres Boike V'Erev U'Kriyas Shema Nimnim Shtayim Shehei Mitzvah She'ein Makveh Zeh Zeh U'Zmana Shel Zeh Loi Zmana Shel Zeh. So that's the Hasogas Ramban, and that's the way he learns. The Rambam L'Cheira is working according to his approach, that if the Matorah, even if it's Eina Machvin is Zu, like Chelis and Lovon, if it's Matorah Achas, see the Ramban says that Matorah Achas might not be enough. If it's two Maisim, Zman Shazelo, because the Ram learns that if it's one purpose, the purpose is a mitzvah of Tamid, one Inyan Atera. So it's one mitzvah. Now, this pasuk that the Ram quotes interesting pasuk, because you look at the pasuk, Shnayim layoim oile summit. We don't know. There's a mitzvah. It's a description of what you should do. That there should be a tamid, and there's no verb here at all. Shnayim layoim oila summit. There should be 2 a day, oila, and always. There's no verb. There's no command. However, if we look at the beginning of the parsha, Tzav es b'nei Yisrael, v'yomart aleim, es kobeni lachmi li'ishai, leach nichoich, tishmeru lahakriv li b'moado. It means the tzivui timaka b'moado. Shnayim. The question is, what exactly Kobani lachmi doesn't say. It says always says Kobani Samnei Matalim as Kobani lachmi. Whatever this Kobani lachmi, it's a very nebulous term. But the Torah tells you that the mitzvah is Shnayim Alim Summit. But the verb is at the beginning of the parsha, and it goes in the whole parsha. Sabbath b'nei Yisrael matalim es kobani lachmi li'ishai reich nichoichi tishmu akrim moado. So all the Ram is quoting is not the tzivui over here, but what's the description of the mitzvah? The mitzvah is shnayim layoim or the summit. And then there's a tzibur on the whole parsha of Tishmu Lachu Moado, and then there's a specific tzibur after that. Es a keves echod taseh baboiker, ve'es a keves hasheni taseh ben abayim. There's also an explicit tzibur for Tamid. And the Ram in Perek Aleph of Hilchos Tmidim Musafim, Halach Aleph, the Ram says, Mitzvah say להקריב שני כבוסים עולס בכל יום הניקויים תמידים, again the same thing, אחד בבוקר ואחד בין ארבעים שנאמר שניים ליום עולס תמיד וגוימר. So לכאורה this is the Begoimer, is the Kavon, is the continuation. Es a keves echod tasa ba'boiker, ve'es a keves hasheni tasa ben abayim. Shnayim elam summit. See here, it doesn't have necessarily. There's no v'chule of a Begoimer, but the Mishnah Torah, there is such a thing, and maybe the Kavon is the rest of it, which is a peculiar tzivui for the Tamid shel Shachar, Tamid shel Bein Mayim. It's a keves echod taseh b'boker. It's a keves hasheni taseh bein haboyim. Next, it's very clear, and that's the pasuk he's quoting. He's quoting the Parsha Pinchos. The Parsha Pinchos is the source of the mitzvah of Tamidim. So the question one could ask is, why do we need the Parsha Pinchos of the Tamidim? Let's learn from the Tzava. Because in the Tzava it says, Ola's Tamid, L'dori Seichem, Pesach Oil Moed, Lifnei Havayat Pnei Hashem, Asher Ivoy Lochem Shomo, L'daber Elecha. So, in fact, the explicit discussion that the mitzvah of Tmidim is mitzvah l'deres is really in the Tzava. So, in fact, you find, it means the question is, it says, well, it's the Doris Sechem, Pesach Olam. So it's the Doris Sechem. So it's the foolish of the Doris. So one could have said that the Parsha of Tamid and Tetzaveh comes after Miluyim. And it's not L'deris. And you could have said the mitzvah Tamid there is part of mitzvah Miluyim. And Rav Avram ben Arambam there writes, Olas Tamid me Amrei L'deris Seichem, from that what it says in the pasuk, Kloima lo yezeh kekarbon amiluyim shekodam betchilas perek zeh shehi mitzvah she'eino negel l'deres, but it's a mitzvah l'deres, l'deres sechem. So Rav Avram ben Aram says Gufa the l'deres sechem says that it's l'deres. So it's very odd that we choose the Parsha of Pinchas and not the Parsha of the Tzava. Rashi in Pinchas, in Bamidbar Chavches, Posik Dalid, Divi Amaschel, Esakevis Echod, Afa Pi, שכבר נאמר בפרשת ביאת תצווה, וזה אשר תעשה, היא הויסה הזהורה לימי המילואים. וכאן לדרס. Kitzur, the whole part, Tetzaveh, is referring to the Miluyim. And the mitzvah l'deres is in mitzvah l'deres is in Pinchas. The Ramban asks that it's mefurish in the Korah on Parshas Moshe, mitzvah l'deres, exactly what we talked about before. And as the Ramban, as Rav Avram ben Aram says, the Seichem tells you no, that the rest is before his Miluyim, but this is the days. Going to talk about this, whatever. The question is what it is, but whatever it is, we have no idea of why the Rambam is picking this, because even his son says that he's possibly going like Rashi, but the Ramban's kasha the kasha. Rav Sadi going quotes the source of the mitzvah as the Parsha Tetzaveh. In Perek Yudalid, Chovesh shechayovet behen ho'uma kula lo hayichidim behein chavei b'kosa, and he writes like this: V'akroves shnei kvosim b'chol yoyim sheyisoref echod. I guess Raboker kfi she'omar v'zeh asher ta'aseh ad seif ho'inim. Zeh asher ta'aseh is in וזה אשר תעשה על המזבח, כבוסי בני שונו, שניים ליום ולסום, which is the Shmois Chavtes, Pasuk Lamed Ches, which is the Pasuk of Miluyim. So if Sadi going certain learns of Miluyim, the Ram clearly learns it from the Parshas Pinchas, as Rashi does also. It's not clear why the Rambam takes Pinchas and not Tetzaveh, as the Ramban would have, you could imagine Ramban doing, and Rambam ben Aram also said it's a L'dor Seichem. Okay, so okay. Next, Mitzvah Mem. Second. Mitzvah Mem. HaMitzvah hu aboim hi shetzivonu sheyakriv kohen Gdol b'chol yom Tamid. What? Mincha b'boker u mincha bein ha'abayim. V'hi nikres chavite kohen Gdol v'tikra minchas kohen Mashiach. This is the code word by Chazal, the code name for the mitzvah. V'amar yis'aleh ze korban Aron uvonov asher yakrivu LaShem v'chule, ukvar yisboim mishpnei mitzvah zo, umosai tikorev, ve'ech tikorev, v'sheni menoches, ubitchi, the ninth parak of menoches, makoimos miyumo v'tomid. Okay, good. Slowly. Now, Tamid, so this is a very odd thing. We don't understand. I want to show my ignorance here. We have no clue of what the Rambam wants or means when he says B'chol Yom Tamid. Why is he adding? B'chol Yom means every day. So what's Tamid? If it's B'chol Yom. So we don't know. Maybe it's for emphasis. We have no clue of what the Rambam wants to add here. Now, let's go slowly. He shetzivonu sheyakriv kohen Gdol b'chol yom mincha b'boker mincha bein ha'abayim. Chavite kohen Gdol on boker tzarayim, according to the Rambam, is clearly one mitzvah. So there's a problem here. We just said that according to the Ramban, that Tomid shachar and Tomid bein ha'abayim, two mitzvahs. Right? Haktoris haboker, haktoris bein ha'abayim is two mitzvahs. Kriyishma shel arvis, or kriyishma shel arvis, or kriyishma shachas and kriyishma arvis is also two mitzvahs. So everything is two mitzvahs. So, but we don't find that the Ramban says that Chavite Kohen Gdol is two mitzvahs, because he has that discussion at the end of Shiur Aleph, And in the Mitzvah Silek and the Aseh, what he added and what he took out, he adds, he says, it's the two mitzvahs Tamid, the two mitzvahs Aktoras, and the two mitzvahs Kriyishma. But he doesn't say the two mitzvahs of Chavitim. So what changed and why is that so? So we mentioned all discussions in there. We mentioned exactly what he's talking about. He doesn't mention Chavitim. So if one would postulate that Mincha Saboika and Mincha Ha'erev, Chaviti Kohen Gadol, one is Ma'akiv the other, then it's no problem. Because Ramban says that it's only two mitzvahs because it's Einu Ma'akiv Zu Zu, Kriz B'Shachal not Ma'akiv Shal Abbas. But however, we know from the Tisefta, Imenochis, Perik Zayin Aloch Aleph, Minchas Kohen Gadol, Shalakorav Chetzi Baboket Tikorav Kula Bein Abayim. Kula Bein Abayim, Chovis Bein Abayim. So it means that even though you are Mekayim the mitzvah Boker, you are Mekayim the mitzvah of Bein Abayim. So l'chayra, it's Einu Makav Zu, and Zmano Shazu is like Zmano Shazu, and it's two different Maasim. So it's the exact same paradigm as Tomid Shachar and Tomid Bein Abayim, Haktorah Shaboike, and Haktorah Bein Abayim, and Kliyas Shachar and Kliyas Avis. And because of this paradigm, Ramban says it's two mitzvahs. And here he doesn't count it. So that is the kasha. And but the truth is, not only is it Tesefta, the Achronim take as a double portion, that is Einamak Vizu, Minchas Chinuch, Mitzvah Kuflam Vobois Aleph, the Orcha Shulchan Osid, Hilchois Tmin Musafim, Simon Kuf Zayin, Sif Tes. So the question is, why is Ramban counted as one mitzvah? It should be two mitzvahs, according to Tameh. So one could suggest that the Ramban is ready to accept that Chavitim is one mitzvah, because Chavitim Shel Shachris and Chavitim Shel Bein Abayim is one korban. Therefore, it's mitzvah achas. Basically, Tomid Shel Shachar, Tomid Shel two different korbanos. Torah Shel Boker, Torah Shel Bein Abayim is two different korbanos. But the machsis, it's a machsis of Boker, or machsis Sorayim, and it basically is one korban. Because that's the pasuk. Zeh korban Aaron uvonov, asher yakrivu Hashem, b'yomi Moshe choisoi, asirus oeifo, sirus mincho tomid, machatzisa b'boker, machatzisa b'erev. Machsisa means half of a whole. So each one's a half. So it's all one korban, shnei chalakim of the whole. Ram also mean a kotz is mashma like that it's really one chefs of korban. In minya kotzer, in asay mem, להקריב kohen גדול, מנחה בכל יום, שנאמר זה קרבן אהרן ובניו. Mincha b'chol yom. So he's talking mincha b'chol yom. It's not pamayim. It's a mincha. It's one korban. And then he says in the Protei mitzvahs, in Hilchos Tamidim Musafim, sheyakiv kohen gadol mincha b'chol yom. It's one mincha. V'hi, and this one mincha is called chavitin. Okay. So that is the explanation of the Ramban, and the Rambam seems to be like that, but for the Rambam it's not necessary. Because it's one mitzvah independent. Next. Now, וגם כן מנחס כהן משיח. Okay? וזה קרבן אהרן ובניו, להקריב להשם. Okay. So here the problem is, it says ze korban Aaron the kol korban asher yakrivu l'Hashem. Is there a explicit tzivui over here? You could say maybe Shakrivu is not Beloshin Osid, it's a tzivui. They should be makriv each day. But here, there's a very interesting thing, because you expect a command should not be a prepositional phrase. And here, it's a prepositional phrase, because it says, Asher Yakrivu. Asher is a preposition. And you would expect that mitzvahs require direct tzivui. And it seems that you can have an indirect tzivui. You have to know, maybe this is the same type of idea that you don't require itcha, that the mashmos HaKosav is also good enough for tzivui. You have to know, but whatever it is, here you should know that the tzivui over here is a prepositional phrase. Asher yakrivu l'Hashem. Now, here, this was like the groundwork. Very simple, observation of Ramban. Okay, say it. Now, the more interesting part is this part. You and everyone knows that not only is there Minchas Chavitim, or Minchas Kohen Mashiach, there's also something called Minchas Chinuch, which means every Kohen Hedit and every Kohen Gadol, when they begin to be makriv, she makriv the Mincha. And we learn that you have to be makriv a Minchas Chinuch, Kohen Hedit, Hein Kohen Hedit, and Hein Kohen Gadol, from this parasha. And we want to discuss this, and Mitzvah Hashem, that's what part of the issue. There's no mention of Minchas Chinuch at all here. The discussion is solely limited to Minchas Chavitin. The Rambam is mefurish. They learn out minchas chinuch. Not only the Rambam, Tzachimo Menachos, learn out from the base, and the Rambam Hilchos Klei HaMikdash v'oivdim boy Perek Halocha Tezayin. You learn out minchas chinuch from this parsha. The question is, how does all this work out? And what's included in this mitzvah? This is only the tip of the iceberg. The problem is much more global than the issue of what's included in the mitzvah. Question is, how do you read the pasuk? It says, "Ze korban Aaron uvonov, akshirivu Hashem biyom himoshach oisai." Biyom himoshach oisai. You get the impression is that this korban is a korban of inauguration of the Kohen Gdol, the Yom Himoshach Oisai. On the other hand, and it's only on that day, and then it says that it should be every day, Tamid. B'Yom Himoshach Oisai. It's a very strange thing. Pasuk says to itself, "Minei ubei." That's what it says. Ze korban Aaron uvonov asher yakrivu Hashem b'yom himoshach oisai asir sa'efer solis mincha tamid machsisa b'boker machsisa bo'erev. It's tamid, and you split it. But it's b'yom himoshach oisai. It's not b'yom himoshach oisai. It's b'yom himoshach oisai. It's a one-time thing, and it's chinuch. If it's Tamid, it's all right, it's something else. And the post seems to say that it's both, which is, very difficult. And maybe because of that, Chazal learned both of these things from the psukim, both minchas chavitim and minchas chinuch. So maybe it shouldn't be one mitzvah. Maybe it should be two mitzvahs. And if you decide that it's one mitzvah, you should mention both of them. That is more the global issue. And the pasuk, it's an amazing thing going on over here. The Ram doesn't mention minchas chinuch at all here as part of the mitzvah. Okay, so that is the question, okay? So the Rashbam and the Ebenezer they learn that, let's say, according to Pshuto Shomiko, that the first pasuk, see the two psukim here, let's just get them straight. Ze korban Aaron uvonov asher yakrivu l'Hashem b'yom himoshach oisai asir se'efer siris mincha tamid machsis rabok v'sir Be'erev, that's one pasuk. Then I'm skipping something, another pasuk later. V'koyin HaMoshiach takta mibonov yaseh oisei chok olam Lashem kolil tokto. See what that pasuk is. But let's work really on the first pasuk, because the first pasuk is really the more difficult one. So the Rashbam and the Ibn Ezra are learning the first pasuk that according to Pshuto Shomikra, the first pasuk is only said by Chavitim of Kohen Gadol. And this, if you look at the Malbim, has a discussion there, and it's his second approach. The Ibn Ezra does an amazing thing, and it says, Biyoimi Moshe, so the base really is Ki'ilu, that there's a mem there. Not Biyoimi Moshe Chaisai or Miyoimi Moshe Chaisai. It starts on that day and it continues constantly, and then it's certainly no problem. It's Minchas Chavitim. Biyoimi, that's what he writes. Biyoimi Moshe Chaisai, V'rabim Omru, Ki Zeh HaBeis Tachas Mem. Ki miyoim vatam, ki miyoim imosha goisai, hine ze chayiv להקריב תמיד מנחה. So the Kohen Gadol has to continue. Very good, very simple. And just the change is no mention of Minchas Chinuch, and the whole discussion is about not biyoim mishmoshecha, miyoim mishmoshecha. Rashbam ze Carbon Alan ובניו, זה לפי הפשט בין אהרן הכהנים הגדולים, קוראים דם תחתוב. Who are these? בני אהרן לפי הפשט, בני אהרן הכהנים הגדולים קוראים דם תחתוב. Because there's no mention of Kohen head yet. And l'chera, it's a Kohen Gadol and not a Kohen head yet. Because it says lefi apshat b'nei Aaron hakohanim hagedolim kohen tachtov. So it really is the b'nei Aaron ze Carbon Alan ובניו. It means those that will become a Kohen Gadol, and it's only Kohen Gadol. So we understand, since the Pshuto Shomikra and the Pshat is only Kohen Gadol and only Minchas Chavitim and nothing to do with Minchas Chinuch, and that's the only Pshuto Shomikra. So Chayra, Minchas Chinuch is only a drasha and not Pshuto Shomikra, and it's not Nimnis because of the second sheresh. Because we don't count droshes in Minyan HaMitzvos. And that's, if you read the Rashbam, you get the impression Minchas Chinuch is only a drosha, because he says, V'chachomim, the lashon Rashbam is, V'chachomim dorshu, shekol kohen hedit, t'sho'iseh avodah, goyde v'mishayna, tzorch Minchas Chinuch, tzorch Chinuch v'mincha. So maybe the Ram learns like that according to Pshat, it's Chavite Kohen Gadol, and maybe the Minchas Chinuch is only a drasha. Drasha is not Minyan HaMitzvos. There's only one mitzvah in Shalom Yisrael. The question is, maybe one could have said that the other pshat is like kilu, not a drasha, but it's a pirush makubal. And then you don't have the leeway to saying it. This you have to evaluate whether you can have a pirush makubal, which is so he said the pshat, because the pshat says that it's always, and the pirush makubal says a one-time thing. And that you have to see. Well, in Yevomis, we'll see. Doing that, we'll talk about the more in Yevomis some other time. Okay. In many places, Oya ben Abachol. In many places, the Rambam quotes dinim shenilmadu midrashat Chazal in Sefer HaMitzvos. After he has a mitzvah, since it's mafurish b'kor or it's a pirush makubal, you can discuss the drashas also, because it's not the hafkor in Shiur Sheni that you don't mention drashas and mitzvahs is only to make a new mitzvah, but if it's to expand the mitzvah, so is a double portion. That's what drush is all about. The Rambam over here doesn't, even if you say it's a drasha, the question is why the Rambam doesn't mention it over here, because drasha you can expand the mitzvah. So I think the simple answer is that a drasha can expand the mitzvah. But if the inyan of the drasha and the inyan of the mitzvah are chalukim lagamre, one is talking about a carbon to be makriv tamid, that's what the Kohen Gadol does. What's the relationship to the tamid shashachar? Well, it's not related, whatever it is, but it's a carbon tamid and the Kohen Gadol. And here the minchas chinuch is not a carbon tamid, it's chinuch. It's nothing to do. Therefore, the Rambam, you understand why the Rambam, as a double portion, puts chavite Kohen Gadol and Tamidim Musafim, and minchas chinuch in Hilchos Klei Mikdash ve'oivdim boy, because it's the din of oivdim boy. So the double portion, it's not an extension of the mitzvah, and there's no reason for the Rambam to mention it over here, because it's nothing to do with this mitzvah. So if you take all these steps and accept them, a very strange thing comes out over here. There's a mitzvah in the Torah, which is not nimna b'char mitzvahs. Some we had, but it's not part of any mitzvah. See here, the reason that the reason is because of Shiur Sheni. You find the mitzvah on Tizkul Kontab Chaim is because of the time, the Shiur of Timim. Shiur Hey, the mitzvah to leave the fourth ruach in a milchama open in order that the enemy should be able to run away. Malachim, Perek Vav, Halacha Zayin, Ramban in Asogas to Mitzvah say, hey, he has to say, but according to Ram, it's just Dama Kabbalah, it's not shot in any pasuk. So Mela, in the din of a minyan mitzvahs, it doesn't apply. But it could be a mitzvah deiris, but it doesn't fulfill the dinim of the shloshim. It's not in the minyan. It is true that you can learn in Pshuto Shemikra, or not in Pshuto Shemikra, you can learn two dinim and have two separate mitzvahs from the same pasuk. But there, one is a mitzvah, the other is part of another mitzvah. Like, for example, we have a Katzoises Kappa. Katzoises Kappa is the mitzvah of Goidev, which is towards the end of Minyan HaMitzvahs. That's on one hand. And on the other hand, it could be part of the mitzvah of Boishes, of mitzvah of Chabola. And Boishes is part of Chabola. So the same pasuk, Katzoises Kappa, is Loisachas, that you kill him because he's a Goidev, or that since she was Mavayish, she's Chayt Mei Boishes. Two separate interpretations and part of two separate mitzvahs. But that's not a problem. But there is a mitzvah Chabolis that can be part of it. Here, there's no such mitzvah. There's nothing to do with Minchas Chinuch. So you don't have anything to put it in. You don't have a paradigm to put it into. Okay. Now, there's one question one could have asked, and we'll go back to it. But Derech Klal, the Ram's opinion is that Stam Sifra is a Pirush Mekubal. And the Minchas Chinuch is learned in Sefer. And both Minchas Chinuch and Chvite Kohen Gadol found in Sefer. So again, the reason why here you can't have a Pirush Mekubal, which is Soisa the Pshat, or Shnei Pirush Mekubalim, which is Soisa Zeh. So the Ram learns, so you have to learn it's only a drasha. Once only a drasha, so there's no separate mitzvah. Minchas Chinuch. Now, interesting, I just want this interesting thing. So, remember the pasuk says, Machsisa baboker, umachsisa bo'erev, okay? What's the din of minchas chavitim? It's a whole carbon, or you makiv in two halves. The Rambam only mentions the din of machsisa only when it comes to chavite kohen gadol. When it comes to minchas chinuch, it's mashma yemakivit keshalin. In the Rambam in Klei HaMikdash V'Oivnei in the end of Perek A, he doesn't quote B'chlal the din of machsisa. So l'chira, it's impossible to learn that minchas chinuch is pshat in the pasuk when the pasuk says, besides being tamid, machsisa abuk, machsisa b'tzalayin, but arbein abayim, and l'chira, there's no machsisa. Now, in terms of the problem of the second pasuk, which I quoted. Read it again. V'koyin hamoshiach tachto mibonov yase oiso chok olam l'Hashem kol tokto. So we know already from the first pasuk that Aaron and Bonov bring the Chavite Kohen Gadol. So what's Nitesif in this pasuk, the second pasuk? We don't know what's Nischadesh in Pshuto Shel Mikra. However, we do know that there are many dinim that is Nischadesh over here in terms of limudim. That that Mub Begodim also brings Chavitim. That the not limited to Kohen Moshuach B'Shem HaMishcha, that B'no Horoi is used to be a Kohen Gadol. And how the Yoshim bring Machzis Hasheni B'meis Kohen Gadol Achre Avos Harishon. Sifro and Pasha Sab Gimel, Pasha Gimel, Tchilas Perikei, but that's only in drushes. But in Shuta Mikra, we have no clue of what's added over here. Mitzvah Shem, we'll pick up the Korban Musaf Shabbos Mem Aleph next time, B'li Neder.